But today we're going to be installing a Banks Monster Ram intake and grid heater kit on this 2018 Ram. A super common failure point on the 2013 to 2018 Rams and some even earlier years as well as later years. And that issue is the grid heater nut actually falling off into the engine and basically destroying the motor. So that is caused by the grid heater nut over time, goes through a lot of heat cycles, and eventually it just gets hot and breaks off, falls down in there. A lot of times it'll go into cylinder 6. It can go into any cylinder and it just trashes the motor. A lot of times guys are even having to put a whole long block in the truck. So it's a very, very expensive failure. This Banks Monster Ram kit is going to help alleviate some of those issues. So let's open it up and see what's in the box. This kit comes in 3 different colors. You can get it in red, natural, or black. This customer opted for the black option. So we have the actual intake horn itself. We're going to do a comparison once we get the stock one off and show you guys how much larger the Banks Monster Ram intake is. Just the overall design and inside diameter of the intake horn itself is a lot bigger and better. It has all of our provisions to hook our factory EGR back up and all that stuff. Intake air temperature sensor. So we'll set that to the side now. We have some gaskets, mounting hardware, and a new cylinder 1 fuel injection line. That is included because the size of this intake horn, that kind of has to be rerouted a little bit. A pigtail adapter. Some other miscellaneous hardware, zip ties, and some plugs. We have a intake runner gasket set and intake horn gasket set. And then we have the intake itself, the intake runner. This is a very nice piece. We're gonna, like I said, go ahead and get started removing a lot of this stock stuff off, and we'll do a comparison laid out and show you guys some of the differences that you're gonna be seeing from the stock OEM to the Banks. Comes with a QR code you can scan for a install kit. You can register your product with bankspower.com, and it's got a special letter in here from Mr. Gale Banks himself. And yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. They're going the extra mile, and they give you some literature here and kind of explain what exactly you're getting here with your purchase. So these are once again available on the website, ready to ship. You usually keep these in stock, so they're going to ship within 1 to 2 business days. Without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get going on this truck, get all this stock stuff pulled off, and do a comparison laid out on the table and show you guys the difference between the stock and the Banks Monster Ram intake. All right, guys, your first step is to remove both negative battery terminals. It's a 10mm on the driver's side and it's an 8mm on the passenger side. The first thing we're going to do is pull this first decorative shield off. We'll have to pull the dipstick out, set it off to the side for a second. Four 8mm bolts, stick the dipstick back in. And to remove this EGR cooler tube. So we've got 11 here. We've got 4 10mm bolts, 2 electrical plugs, and then over here on the passenger side we have another 11mm V-band clamp. So 2 V-band clamps, 4 10s, 2 plugs. We'll just go ahead and get this off and get it out of the way. And here hidden we have I believe that dude is in 8mm buried down in there. We're gonna get it out. 8mm on it. We gotta get that dude out of there. It's gonna be kind of tricky with the upper radiator hose in the way. Get that loose. What I'm gonna do is just kind of work it all out of there without dropping that nut. Got my finger on it. Oops, almost dropped it. Almost dropped it. Got her. Alright guys, next we're going to just start unplugging some of these electrical connectors so we can get this harness pulled out of the way. Helps to have a fuzz button tool. Pull that out of there. Slide that dude off there. Just going to set this down here out of the way. And this is our actual grid heater wire. We're going to have to cut this zip tie here, and then there's a 10 millimeter on that guy. Here, we'll get this EGR pulled off here. Then we're going to get our dipstick out of the way. So to get the rest of this horn off here, got another connector here, and then up underneath the bottom side of this intake, there is a throttle valve plug that we got to unplug. It's going to be really hard to show it on camera, but I'll show you guys what the connector looks like when we get it out. It's got a push pin style lock on it, so I got to push it over. That's what your throttle valve plug looks like. And I had to push that red pin over to get it to come unplugged. So that's all the electrical connections on the throttle valve. On the intake horn, I've got a piece of wiring harness that is just kind of secured to a fastener on the back of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get that harness pulled off there, like so. That's loose. Now I'm going to work on getting this horn out of here. I've got to remove these 10 millimeter bolts. There's going to be 6 exactly. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then there's going to be an 11 millimeter intercooler boot clamp. We got to pull it off. It's back here. We're going to get it pulled off. And it's going to be pretty stuck in that boot. But once we get it off there, we can kind of start fishing this thing out of here. So we'll get all the bolts we can real quick with our tool that we got here. Won't be able to get all of them, but we'll be able to get several. We're going to go ahead and just pull this dipstick bracket out of here as well. Doesn't necessarily need to be removed, but it's going to make it a lot easier. We've got one more. I'm actually going to take the 11 loose real quick before I go messing with that one. Should be able to get on this with an electric ratchet, I think. Oh yeah. Loose. I'm gonna see if I can knock that And that's gonna be pretty seized on there. So what I'm gonna do is take this last nut out of here, or last bolt, I should say. Get that out of there. What we're gonna try and do is wiggle this thing without folding. There it goes. Just got it to twist there a little bit on the left. Got to twist upward, got to come loose. They get pretty seized in there. Nut that is generally the issue. It's this nut here. It will generally break and fall down into the engine, and the engine will eat it. So definitely not good. Something we want to do real quick before we go too much farther is we don't want to drop any debris, any foreign material or anything that's just kind of under the truck, road grime. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a shop towel and lay over this intake, and then we're going to get some shop air, and we're going to just blow all this out really good. Gently put our hand on it. Alright guys, next we're going to pull these crankcase ventilation tubes out. These can be kind of tricky to get out of here without breaking. Take your time. If you break one, you're probably going to break it right here, so you'll have to skim together the stuff to salvage that. Just take a little push button tool, pry that guy off. Be real careful with these. They get brittle over time and they'll break. What I'll do is just gently get this thing tucked out of the way, that way I don't have to worry about breaking it later on. It's safe right there, it's out of the way. I'm going to do the same thing with the second one, a little farther back, a little harder to see. Get that one out of the way. And this one's actually a lot more flexible. Tuck it out of the way, now we don't have to worry about breaking those. We have a little zip tie right here. So we'll get that loose from the dipstick. And actually, to get our dipstick even more out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and jump back here. I'm going to pull this wiring harness off of that intake bolt in the back. I'm going to pull that nut out, and I will be able to take this dipstick mount loose. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Here in the back, at the end of this fuzz button tool, there's a dipstick bracket right there. I'm going to take that loose. It's going to give me a ton more room. I can just gently pull that dipstick out of the way. You could just keep working and get to this point later on. A lot easier accessible, a lot more accessible. Okay, now this is, you got to be careful with this, guys. These will break. I've had them break on me before. So we're just going to kind of gently get that guy over to the side there. Really sketch with those. They'll break in the block. Had it happen on several trucks. This is a relatively newer truck. We should be okay. I don't think we're going to have to deal with that breaking. We'll get that off to the side, and now we can unplug this portion of the wiring harness. Once we get all this unplugged, that's going to give us the room to get this noise isolator out of here. So it's really difficult to get that out with this wiring harness in the way. So we've got 2 injector wiring harness plugs. We've got one here, and then we've got one farther back on the valve cover, and then this wraps around, this harness wraps around over on the other side of the valve cover. So we got to get it out all the way to over here. It plugs into EGR valve, back pressure sensor, plugs into a bunch of stuff over here we got to get out. These connectors, guys, you got to take your time with them. This truck's come apart pretty easy, but a lot of these connectors will get really stuck, full of dirt, road grime, and everything like that. So there's that. Plugs undone. Or I'll just use a flat blade screwdriver, stick down in there, push that tab over, just gently wiggle that guy up. Got another big connector back here. To help ease some of this, we're going to pull this big harness here out of the way. Plug it right here, gray connector. time with it. Get it out of there, put it off to the side.
Should I call him, tell him in case he wants me to do both sides?
Yeah, that's fine. Tell him it'd be a waste of an alignment. Top rag over top of my intake. And get my shop air out again. And blow all of that debris out of there. Take it off. So these are all 19s at the injector feed tubes, 19s at the rail. I believe this is a 17 here at the return, and then the feed to the rail is a 19 as well. And then we also have some 10mm bolts that hold the rail itself down to the intake. They also act as an intake bolt. So essentially what we got to do, guys, is, like I said, just start pulling these lines off and start pulling these bolts out. We'll get this rail pulled off. What I'm going to do, once I get that number 6, I'm not even going to pull it off the feed tube. I'm just going to slide it up out of the way. There's no reason to pull it off. Kind of show you guys what I'm talking about there. Just take it loose. Get it out of the way. And you're actually going to want to not only take it loose there, you'll want to jump down here to your CP3, take it loose there as well, so that way you can slide it out of the way, just like so. So it's out of the way. Now we've got our return here. It's a 17 on that guy, I believe. Let's see if my guess was right. My guess was right. And this one has 2 banjo sealing washers. This one's a banjo bolt, so it actually is going to come out of here. You guys got to be careful not to lose the sealing washer. Guys, at this point the rail is going to be loose. Once again, like I said, I did not unplug the fuel rail pressure sensor on the rear of the engine because I don't necessarily need to, and less is more, right? I mean, if I can do less work and achieve the same amount of quality and the same amount of time and save myself time, then why would I? No reason to unplug that guy. Tuck it off to the side. Now we're going to finish removing the intake. There's really not very many bolts left. You've got a couple, literally a couple, three are all that hold this thing on once everything else is pulled out of the way. That shows you how much stuff they pile on these late model Rams. I'd like to take this time to show you guys the difference in the stock intake horn to the Banks Monster Ram intake horn. This factory intake runner has all this bracing on it, which is going to slow air down. It's not going to flow as good. This one is smooth on the bottom. We got a nice smooth flow, and as well back to the intake horn here, we have just a very, very smooth transition and a lot larger of an opening where it actually goes into the cylinder head. So we're going to see an improvement in fuel mileage, an improvement in EGTs. It obviously looks a lot better than the factory one. gasket to put the bank's intake runner back on. I'm gonna recommend just use a razor blade, guys. And you're gonna have a lot of carbon deposits that come off here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to scrape this clean with a razor blade, and then we're gonna get a shop vac out, and we're gonna suck every little bit of debris that falls down in this intake runner out with the shop vac. So just take your time. It's inevitable. You're gonna drop some stuff in here. The main thing is that we get it out before we go reassembling the engine. As far as prep goes on the new intake runner, we really just need to put the intake temperature sensor in, and we're ready to go ahead and start getting that ready to install on the truck. So we're going to just gently get it in its place where it goes without moving that gasket around too much. And at this point right here, we're going to go ahead and start getting this fuel rail back up into its normal location. And one of the things you guys are going to notice is that this fuel rail doesn't sit flat on here like it does on the other one. The other one has step-ups machined into the intake runner to help the fuel rail sit flat, but the Banks kit actually includes these little washer spacers that we got to install at this time. Now we're going to go back in, guys, kind of in a cylinder head gasket pattern, and tighten this intake runner down. Installing our fuel lines, I'm going to start with doing number 6. Remember, we just slid it up out of the way. So we take our protective plastic piece out. It was protecting that from all the contaminants. We're going to go ahead and one by one start getting these fuel lines tightened back up on the rail. Some of this wiring back in, guys, how it goes. Do as much as we can here. So we've got injectors in the back, stuff over here. Remember, we had to unplug, get that wiring out of the way. Back pressure sensor, EGR valve stuff, get all that stuff back how it goes. You guys get the point. Now that we're ready to install the Banks Monster Ram intake, we need to transfer all of the parts from the old intake horn onto the new one. We're going to start with doing the throttle valve assembly. So it's actually going to be an 8mm. So it's an 8mm. Pop it off here. Four, looks like they're all the same length. It's going to come off there. We're going to get all of this debris here cleaned off of here. And we're going to take some shop air, clean all that debris we just made out of the throttle valve. Now when we go to remove this map sensor, it's a T15. We're probably going to notice there's going to be some soot buildup on it. So you want to be careful when you pull this up. It's probably not going to slide right out. And what we're doing right here is we're working that soot off that thing. Yeah, you can see that soot gets built up around, all around that O-ring sealing surface. And if you have map sensor code before, it'd probably be a good time to either clean or replace this, but we didn't have any map sensor codes. We're not gonna mess with this sensor at all. If you guys spray brake clean on this thing, it'll absolutely destroy it. So be very careful when you're messing with the map sensor. We'll just literally transfer it right over into the new intake horn. Be real careful and just get it slid down in there. Put our screw in. It does need to be very tight. The holes drilled and tapped all over the horn. And the reason being, you can add water methanol, aftermarket boost gauges. That's what all this is tapped for. So that, you know, is just something nice they put in there for you. But if you don't want to use any of that, if you're just keeping the truck as stock as you can, then you'll just want to install these plugs. There's 4 of them total, and these are pipe thread, and they're already pre-wrapped in plumber's tape. So that way you don't have to worry about once again, they're pipe plug, so you don't have to get them crazy tight. Like I said, guys, anytime you want to add something down the road, water methanol kit, boost gauge, nitrous, you're pre-tapped already. You just pull one of these plugs out and you have access to the intake. Plug here. Now that we have everything transferred on to the Banks Monster Ram, we're ready to finally stick it in the truck. We're gonna wait to put our EGR assembly piece back on the top until it's in the truck to give us some extra room. So we need to get our gasket and move back over to the truck. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do here is try to somewhat fish this guy in here. You're gonna have to work around the dipstick, you're gonna have to work around the fuel line, you're gonna have to keep your gasket set in. Just be patient here and try and start getting all this stuff lined up how it goes. We got all our intake horn bolts tight. We're going to install our heating element with our copper washer. Alright guys, at this point we're going to reinstall the EGR tube assembly. We have another extension harness we need to plug in. Couple of these connectors together with some zip ties. Try and do it the best we can. There's not really a lot to tie them to, so we're just gonna start with tying them together here. Tie those ones together. Tie these together. All right, guys, something there I'd like to note is when we went to put the EGR tube back on, we could not get it to line up correctly on the gaskets. Couldn't get proper sealing surface, and it's because you actually need to remove this bracket that holds the engine beauty cover on. So you can no longer run that obviously with the Banks kit, but why would you want to when you got this beautiful intake to look at? So at this point we need to start the truck back up, so we need to hook the batteries back up. We got both negatives, like we said, disconnected, and then we're going to have to prime the fuel system. This is a common rail closed system, so basically just takes cycling the fuel pump, and then we got to turn the engine over, and eventually it's going to prime the injectors. It's going to start. So let's start by hooking these batteries back up.